Jena Griswold, thank you for your time today. So your office is acknowledging that you inadvertently leaked voting system passwords by putting them on your website. Colorado Republican Party says that this was more than 600 BIOS passwords for voting systems in all but one Colorado county. Is that accurate?
That is not accurate.
How many passwords and for which counties?
So a spreadsheet located on the department website improperly had a hidden tab with partial passwords. So I think that is really important. This is not the full password to access voting equipment. At this point, we had started an investigation and actually have people in the field that have been working on this issue.
When you say partial passwords, do you mean that it had one of the two passwords required to get into the system, or it did not even have one full password?
It had one of two, and not for all voting components, for some voting components in the state.
How many counties?
At this point, Kyle, we have staff in the field looking at the situation, but we will disclose after they're out of the field. To be very clear, we do not see this as a full security threat to the state. This is not a security threat. There are two passwords to get into any voting component along with physical access. We have layers of security, and out of just an abundance of caution, have staff in the field changing passwords, looking at access logs, and looking at the entire situation and continuing our investigation.
Is it accurate that the passwords were removed from the public portion of your website last Thursday?
Yes.
How long were they up?
They were up for several months without it being realized. As soon as my office, civil servants, became aware that they were up, we started to take action. The first step, of course, was removing those passwords. I want to be clear, not all of those passwords were active current passwords. We then started working with CISA, which is the federal agency in charge of critical infrastructure, including election infrastructure, and began our investigation.
Is it accurate that you did not notify the county clerks of this breach and they found out when the Colorado Republican Party announced it today?
What is accurate is that we had began an investigation and we're working with the appropriate federal partners.
Had you announced it to the county clerks?
No, we had not. We were doing an investigation and in the field actually today before it was announced by the Republican Party.
You held a press conference last Thursday to discuss an unrelated voter fraud scheme in Mesa County. Were you aware at that time that your office had leaked the passwords?
Well, to be very clear, when you say passwords, there are two sets of passwords held by two separate parties in different locations to access voting equipment. So we do not think that this poses an immediate security threat to Colorado's elections. And at the time of the press conference, we were not aware. So I was not aware.
Understood. You do frequent media interviews warning of the insider threats to elections. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security defines an insider threat as somebody who uses authorized access wittingly or unwittingly to do harm. Did the actions of your office pose an insider threat to elections?
No.
And why do you say that?
For several reasons. First off, I do want to underline, given the atmosphere around this election, that this does not pose an immediate security threat to Colorado's elections. Colorado's elections have multiple layers of security. For example, there are two unique passwords held by two different parties in two different locations to access any of the voting equipment. On top of that, you need physical access. So those two sets of passwords need to be used in person. Under Colorado law, there's a series of new and improved laws actually about how we store voting equipment. It has to be in secure rooms. There's a secure ID badge that creates an access log anytime someone goes into those rooms. There's 24/7 video camera recording all election equipment. There's restricted access to ballot areas, strict chain of custody laws. And on top of that, of course, we have paper ballots and risk limiting audits. But we have layers of security to ensure that our elections continue to be some of the best in the nation. And a lot of those security measures that I just mentioned are new and improved since 2021.
In 2021, when Mesa County's voting system passwords leaked, your office said, quote, "The public disclosure of the BIOS passwords for one or more components of Mesa County's voting system alone constitutes a serious breach of voting system security protocols." By that standard, did your office commit a serious breach of voting system security protocols?
No. There's several things. First off, the situation in Mesa County is very distinct to the situation that we are facing today. Because of that, Tina Peters was just convicted of 9 years of incarceration. We were actively investigating the password disclosure as part of a bigger security breach in Mesa County.
Pardon me. What your office said was that the public disclosure of the BIOS passwords alone constituted a serious breach of voting system security. So now that your office has leaked passwords, does that also constitute a serious breach of voting system security protocols?
Well, to push back on you, Kyle, that sentence is in the press release, but there is a much bigger press release. And part of that investigation in Mesa County was 2 sets of passwords, unauthorized access, stolen passwords, and it was in a different time. Since 2021 and what happened in Mesa County, our security has improved, including the 24/7-hour cameras, including the badge and access. The law has been significantly strengthened since then. We have multiple layers in place to ensure situations like Mesa County don't occur, and that is not what is occurring here.
Again, the word choice that it was the passwords alone that constituted the serious breach was, again, the words used by your office. What have you done to determine whether those passwords have been used by an unauthorized person in the months that your office had them online?
Well, we started an investigation immediately after discovering that some of the passwords were online. Again, we have no reason to believe that there are any security breaches or compromises in the state of Colorado. We've been working with federal partners. We have people in the field right now going and changing passwords, looking at access logs, looking at chain of custody books. By the way, they were already looking at chain of custody for weeks. We do take this seriously, but the action is out of an abundance of caution. We have a great deal of confidence in our elections, and out of an abundance of caution, continue our investigation and are working in the field today, but before this even broke.
So after the Mesa County passwords leaked in 2021, you said that your team couldn't confirm that the BIOS passwords hadn't been used at some point to alter the setting of the machines. That's why, among other reasons, you ordered that the county stop using them. Why no similar order here prior to your investigation of whether these machines were illegally entered?
So what is your question? I'm sorry, Kyle.
The question is, in 2021, you ordered Mesa County to stop using the machines for which passwords were leaked because you said your team could not confirm whether the machines had been illegally accessed. Given that your team has not yet completed the assessment of whether any machines in Colorado have been illegally accessed, why are they still being used?
So there's 2 different situations. In Mesa County, we knew that both passwords to access the voting equipment were used. We knew that someone did get onto the voting equipment. And again, our security posture is much different than it was in 2021 when all of this was occurring. We have no reason to believe that a Mesa County situation is happening. We don't have we have no evidence for that. If we do find evidence at any point that a situation like Mesa County is happening or happened, we'll take quick action, but that's just not where we're at.
In 2021, you directed the Colorado Department of State to investigate the password leak in Mesa County. Who will investigate the password leak from your office?
Well, we're disclosing what happened. And again, Kyle, this is not the same situation as Mesa County. Mesa County was part of a larger investigation where we had good knowledge to know that 2 passwords were released, that there was unauthorized access, and that there was a larger conspiracy. We had reason to know that. That is not this situation, and I think it's really important to, be clear with what we're doing, but at the same time, not compare apples to oranges. Again, if we are in a situation where we have good information to know that there is a security threat, we will notify and I will take action, but that's just not where we're at.
So just want to make sure I've got a clear answer to that question. It sounds like what you're saying is the only people investigating the actions of your office are your office, unless I'm mistaken. Is there an outside agency that is investigating what happened in your office?
Well, what happened in my office is very straightforward. We unfortunately had a civil servant upload a spreadsheet with some passwords to voting equipment. That is not the passwords needed to access the voting equipment. You need two sets of passwords. That is the full extent of it. We disclosed that immediately to federal agency CISA that has oversight of the nation's elections, and we've been working with them.
A final question. This is not the first time that your office has made mistakes that have damaged voters' confidence in our elections. In 2022, your office sent out mailers to 30,000 non-citizens inviting them to register to vote. They, of course, are not eligible to register to vote. That same year, your office used Colorado's ballot tracking system to send messages to specific Coloradans encouraging them to vote when, in fact, they had already voted, causing confusion that had to be cleaned up by the county clerks. And now this leak of the voting system passwords. Given your office's repeated errors that have damaged confidence in our elections, which you say is paramount, will you resign?
Absolutely not, Kyle. And I just want to, you're unfairly characterizing and leaving out some crucial information. We came out immediately and said a postcard had been sent out to people who are ineligible. The postcard clearly stated that someone had to be a U.S. citizen. No one tried to register from that group of people. We were actively tracking it. And it became a situation where no one registered. And to push back even further, Kyle, Colorado is tied for #1 in confidence in the country in our elections. We have stood up to situations time and time again to protect the right of Coloradans, going over and beyond what anybody would ask of civil servants in this office. I have the utmost respect and pride of the people who work in this office. They do a great job day in and day out. It's unfortunate that the current situation happened. We are taking it very seriously, investigating, going into the field to make sure in an abundance of caution that everything is okay. But I think it's really important not to conflate scenarios bigger than what they are.
Well, we'll just clarify this then. Given the number of fundamental errors that your office has made that have undermined voter confidence in elections, why do you think they keep happening?
Why do errors happen? Kyle, there are unfortunately situations that arise every election that we are fixing as quickly as possible in the counties and once in a while from my office too. The civil servants in my office have largely been here through various administrations since Scott Gessler, Wayne Williams. They're trusted civil servants. They do an excellent job. The job and demand of running elections is ever evolving. It's getting harder and harder and harder in the threat environment and in the focus on our elections to deliver. With that, I think my office overall does a fantastic job. I have a lot of pride in the civil servants. When there is a mistake, people take it very seriously. They feel bad, but the focus is fixing the solution, which has been happening. So I do not think that characterization is fair. And I think if you ask most Coloradans on the street, they'll be the first to tell you we have great elections that we take pride in. And we are constantly disclosing anything major that is going wrong and trying to fix anything major on a very consistent basis. And with that, we always ask the legislature for more resources. We have done that repeatedly over the last years, and we will be back asking them for more resources because running elections is very complex, especially in this type of environment.
You'd chosen not to tell the county clerks about this password leak. Were you going to tell the public about it if the Colorado Republican Party didn't go public with it today?
So again, I am going to push back on your gotcha premise. We did not decide not to disclose something to county clerks. We were actively investigating along with federal partners. We want to try to take as measured of approaches to situations as possible and gather good information. So along those lines, we are still in an active investigation. Our course remains as it was. It's to gather information, go into the counties, fix any issue that needs to be fixed out of an abundance of caution.
Did you intend to tell the public if it wasn't revealed?
We were still in investigation working with federal partners and had not made that decision. Again, this is not a serious threat to our elections. There is no security breach. There is no evidence of any type of equipment being compromised. We are trying to take a measured approach with everything that is happening both in the state of Colorado and across the country.
Secretary Griswold, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.